There is a certain kind of person who wakes up on their birthday and quietly hopes the day will ask nothing of them. No fanfare, no gathering of voices, no ribbon-wrapped moment where they are placed, awkwardly, at the center of the room. Illuminated, celebrated, made visible. You may know this person. You may be this person. They are not miserable, exactly. They function beautifully in the world. They show up for others. They remember the birthdays of the people they love. They bake the cakes. They write the messages. They clap with genuine warmth when someone else blows out their candles. But when it is their turn, when the calendar circles back to the day they arrived in this world, something strange happens. Something quiet and heavy descends, a low-frequency hum of dread that they cannot quite name and would never dare confess. We live in a world that tells us birthdays are joyful, simple, balloons and abundance and the easy pleasure of being known. And perhaps for some they are exactly that. But for others, for the ones who learned, early and painfully, that visibility was dangerous, a birthday is not a celebration. It is an interrogation, a moment where the world turns its face toward them and asks, "Are you enough? Are you worth this? Do you deserve to take up space?" And so they retreat, they minimize. They say with practiced lightness, "Oh, it's just another day." They deflect the attention. They make themselves small. This video is for them. This is the psychology of those who learn to disappear in plain sight. To understand why some of the deepest people dread their own birthday, we have to go somewhere most psychology videos are afraid to go. We have to go backward, not to childhood as a concept, but to childhood as a felt experience, to the specific texture of what it was like to be small and soft and entirely dependent on people who did not always know how to meet you where you were. Because the dread of being celebrated does not come from nowhere. It does not arrive fully formed in adulthood. It is built, carefully, unconsciously, brick by brick, over years of a particular kind of experience. Psychologists call it the internalized neglect schema. It is not always the result of dramatic abuse or obvious cruelty. Sometimes, and this is the part that is hardest to hold, it is the result of love that was simply absent at the wrong moments. The parent who was physically present but emotionally elsewhere. The family where needs were met materially, but feelings were treated as inconveniences. The household where being too loud, too needy, too much of anything was met with a quiet withdrawal, a cooling in the room, that the child interpreted, as children always do, as a verdict about themselves. Children are phenomenological creatures. They do not think in abstractions. They feel their way toward meaning. And when a child reaches out, with joy, with need, with the simple animal hunger to be met, and that reaching is ignored, dismissed, or punished, the child does not conclude that the adult is limited. The child concludes that the reaching was wrong. And so they learn to stop reaching. They learn to need less. They learn that the safest version of themselves is the quietest one. The one who does not ask too much, who does not want too visibly, who anticipates others' needs before expressing their own. They learn, in other words, to disappear, not all at once, not dramatically, but in small, daily surrenders that accumulate over years into a kind of practiced self-erasure. By the time they are adults, this erasure feels like character. It feels like humility, like modesty, like being low maintenance. They are proud of it even. They wear their smallness like a virtue. But under the virtue, there is a wound. And nowhere does that wound announce itself more clearly than on the day the world says, "Today, we see you. Today you are the center. Today you are worth celebrating." Because their whole architecture was built on the premise that they were not. Let us go deeper. Let us speak for a moment in the language of the brain. When a person who carries an internalized neglect schema is placed in a situation that demands visibility, a birthday party, a toast, a room full of faces turned toward them in expectation, something very specific happens in their nervous system. The amygdala fires. This almond-shaped structure, buried deep in the limbic system, is the brain's sentinel. Its job is threat detection, and for most people, birthdays are not threats. But for the person who learned, through repetition, that being seen leads to disappointment or rejection, the amygdala does not know the difference between a birthday and a battlefield. It reads the attention as danger. It floods the body with cortisol. It whispers in the ancient language of survival, "Make yourself small, look away." Do not let them see how much this means to you. If they see how much it means, they can take it away. This is not weakness, this is wisdom. It is old wisdom, outdated wisdom, wisdom that belongs to a version of you that no longer exists, but wisdom nonetheless. The brain is not cruel, it is loyal. It is protecting you from a pain it remembers, even if you do not. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and philosopher who gave us the concept of individuation, would recognize this pattern immediately. He called it the construction of the persona, the mask we create to navigate the social world safely. The persona is not dishonesty, it is adaptation. It is the self we build to survive the environments we did not choose. And for the person who learned to disappear, the persona is one of effortless self-sufficiency, of needing nothing, of being fine. But Jung was also deeply interested in the shadow, that part of ourselves we have exiled because it was too raw, too hungry, too vulnerable to be acceptable, and the shadow of the self-sufficient person, the one who says, "It's just another day," is a child who wants desperately to be celebrated, who wants, more than almost anything, to be told, "You are worth this. You have always been worth this." Jungian individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole, asks us to do something radical. It asks us to integrate the shadow, not to perform neediness we do not feel, but to give the exiled child within us a seat at the table, to stop pretending that the hunger was never there. There is also the dimension that metacognition opens for us, the act of thinking about our own thinking. The person who dreads their birthday, if they pause long enough, can observe themselves observing. They can notice, "I am minimizing this. I am performing indifference. I am protecting myself from a disappointment I have not yet been given." That noticing, that sacred sliver of awareness between stimulus and response, is where transformation lives. Not in a grand gesture, not in a therapy breakthrough, but in a single honest moment where you catch yourself pretending and decide, just this once, not two. We have spoken about the origins of invisibility, but we have not yet spoken about the cost, because there is always a cost. When we learn to disappear, we do not only hide our needs, we hide our joy, we hide our grief. We hide the full, luminous, complicated reality of being human. We become curators of a smaller self, and the gallery we maintain is impeccable, but it is missing entire rooms. The person who cannot receive celebration on their birthday is often the same person who cannot receive a compliment without deflecting it, who cannot sit in someone's love without immediately wondering when it will be withdrawn, who excels at giving and struggles with the strange, particular vulnerability of being given to. This is what psychologists sometimes call the receiving wound, and it is not about ingratitude. It is about a deep, cellular conviction that generosity directed toward you is somehow a mistake, that if the giver knew you better, they would not give so freely. So you make yourself worthy of the gift by refusing it. You manage the giver's potential disappointment preemptively. You protect yourself from needing something and not getting it by never quite letting yourself need it. Think about the invisible grief embedded in this. The people who love you, gathering around a table, wanting nothing more than to give you a moment of warmth, and some deep, scared part of you is already rehearsing how to make the moment smaller, how to redirect the attention, how to turn the spotlight back onto something, anything else. You smile, you are gracious. You say, "This is too much, I don't deserve this." And you mean it. That is the tragedy. You genuinely mean it. Not because it is true, but because somewhere, in the fragile tapestry of your early experience, it was repeated to you in 100 small ways until it became indistinguishable from fact. The mask is not malicious. It never was. It was sewn together from necessity, from the ancestral echo of a child trying to make themselves lovable by making themselves less. But the mask, worn long enough, fuses with the face, and then it is not a mask anymore. It is an identity. And identities are far harder to remove than costumes. Here is what I want you to understand. And I mean this with every ounce of philosophical precision I can muster. You are not broken. You are buried. There is a difference that matters more than I can say. Broken things require replacement. Buried things only require excavation. And everything that was buried in you, the hunger to be seen, the desire to be celebrated, the simple, ordinary wish to be told that your existence in this world has been a gift, it is all still there. Intact, waiting. Healing, in this context, is not about becoming someone who loves being the center of attention. Some of us will never love that. Some of us are, by genuine temperament, drawn to stillness, to the periphery, to the quiet corners of the room. That is not pathology, that is character. But there is a difference between choosing solitude and being driven to it by fear, between preferring quiet and needing to disappear, between finding peace in simplicity and compulsively refusing abundance because some part of you has decided, without your permission, that you are not worth it. The ocean and its waves. This is a metaphor worth sitting with. You are not the waves. The waves are the emotions. The dread on your birthday morning. The reflexive deflection when someone offers you a compliment. The low hum of unworthiness that rises when you are made visible. These waves are real, they are powerful. They can knock you down, but you are the ocean. The depth beneath the waves. The vast, still intelligence that holds both the storm and the calm without being destroyed by either. The pause, that space Viktor Frankl wrote about between stimulus and response, is the moment you remember that you are the ocean, that the wave of dread does not have to command you, that you can feel it, name it, and choose differently. Self-reconciliation is not the same as self-attack. This is something the wound-minded among us often confuse. We believe that to heal, we must first punish ourselves for being wounded. We must confront, judge, and correct the broken parts. But the path to healing runs in the opposite direction. It runs through compassion, through the radical act of speaking to the child inside you, the one who learned to be small, with the same tenderness you would offer any child who had been hurt. You would not tell a hurt child that they are foolish for hurting. You would not tell them to be grateful for what they had, to stop being so sensitive, to get over it. You would sit with them, you would witness them, you would say, I see you. What happened to you was real, and I am here now. That is what self-reconciliation asks of you. Not a performance of self-love, not a morning routine of affirmations, but a genuine, private, tender turning toward the parts of yourself you have been avoiding. The next time your birthday arrives, or the next time someone tries to celebrate you, in any form, for any reason, I want you to try something. Let yourself be seen for just a moment longer than is comfortable. Do not perform gratitude and then redirect. Do not minimize the gesture. Do not make yourself small to protect the giver from the weight of your actual need. Simply breathe and receive, and let the warmth land, even if it is unfamiliar. Even if it sits awkwardly in your chest like something you don't quite know where to put. The discomfort is not a sign that the love is wrong. It is a sign that your nervous system is learning something new. And the nervous system, that ancient loyal guardian, is capable of learning. Slowly, imperfectly, with great patience and small steps, but it can learn. We began this conversation with a certain kind of person. There is a word we rarely associate with birthdays: revolution. We think of revolution as loud, as marches and manifestos and the dramatic toppling of structures. We think of it as something that happens in the streets, not in the silence of a Tuesday morning when you decide, for the first time in years, to let yourself want something. But consider this. For a person who has spent decades learning to disappear, the act of allowing themselves to be celebrated is perhaps the most genuinely radical thing they will ever do. Not because it changes the world outside, but because it changes the world inside. And that world, the interior world, the private architecture of how you understand your own worth, is the only world that was ever truly yours to change. Psychologists who study self-compassion, and here the work of Dr. Kristin Neff is worth pausing on, have found something quietly astonishing. The people who find it most difficult to extend compassion to themselves are often those with the greatest capacity to extend it to others. Their empathy is immense. Their generosity is real. Their care for others is not performed. But turn that same gaze inward and something seizes. The inner critic awakens. And the inner critic of the person who learned to disappear is not a loud theatrical tyrant. It is something far more insidious. It is a quiet, reasonable-sounding voice that says, be careful. Don't want too much. You'll only be disappointed. You've managed this far without needing it. Why start now? That voice sounds like wisdom. It sounds like self-protection. It sounds sometimes almost like kindness. It is none of those things. It is fear, old fear. Fear that was once appropriate and has long since outlived its usefulness. But fear that never received the memo that the danger has passed. That the adults who couldn't meet you are no longer in the room. That you are the adult now. And you have, quietly and without fanfare, become someone capable of meeting yourself. So when I say that allowing yourself to be celebrated is a revolutionary act, I mean it with precision. Because every system, psychological, familial, cultural, that benefits from your smallness requires your cooperation. It requires you to continue believing the verdict that was handed down about you before you were old enough to appeal it. It requires you to keep maintaining the myth that your needs are too much, your joy is too loud, your existence is somehow provisional. And the moment you say, quietly, privately, without announcement, no, I am worth this, not because I have earned it through sufficient suffering or adequate achievement, but because I am here, and I am alive, and that has always been enough. In that moment, you are not simply healing yourself, you are breaking a chain. Because these patterns do not only live in us, they travel through families, through generations, through the silent lessons we absorb before we have words for them. The parent who could not celebrate themselves taught a child who could not celebrate themselves, who will teach a child, unless the chain is broken. And chains are not broken through force. They are not broken through self-improvement programs or rigid disciplines, or the performance of confidence we do not yet feel. They are broken through the slow, steady, unglamorous work of choosing, one small moment at a time, to be a little more present in your own life than you were the day before. To receive the compliment without deflecting it, to sit with the discomfort of being loved, to say, when someone asks what you want for your birthday, actually, here is what I want, and mean it. These are not small things dressed up as large ones. They are genuinely large things that have been made to seem ordinary. The ordinary courage of the person who has spent years disappearing and decides, finally, to stay. To stay visible, to stay present, to stay. Even when the old reflex rises, as it will, and whispers its familiar invitation to make yourself a little smaller, a little quieter, a little less. You do not have to comply. You never had to comply. You simply did not know until now that the choice was always yours, the one who wakes up on their birthday and hopes the day will ask nothing of them. We have traveled far together since then, through the neuroscience of threat response, through the Jungian shadow and the internalized neglect schema, through the price of the receiving wound and the slow alchemy of self-reconciliation. And I want to end not with a conclusion, but with an invitation. The deepest people, the ones who have spent years learning to disappear, they often carry something extraordinary within them. Their capacity for empathy is immense, precisely because they have known what it is to go unseen. Their sensitivity is vast, precisely because they learned to read rooms before they could read words. Their inner life is rich, precisely because they were forced to build sanctuaries inside themselves when the outer world did not feel safe enough. There is beauty in the ordinary and the conscious, not the performed ordinary, the "it's just another day" that is armor disguised as ease, but the genuine ordinary, the quiet Tuesday morning where you sit with a cup of something warm and feel, without drama or announcement, that you are glad to be alive, that your presence in the world has weight and texture and meaning. You do not need a party to feel that. You do not need applause. You do not even need anyone else in the room. But you do need to stop disappearing. You do need, gradually and gently, to let yourself be seen, by yourself first, and then, in your own time, by others. Because the world does not need a smaller version of you. It does not need your most edited, most curated, most carefully minimized self. It needs the real one, the one who feels things deeply, the one who has traveled through darkness and arrived, somehow, still tender. The one who knows what it is to be unseen and therefore understands, more than most, the sacred act of truly witnessing another. So on your next birthday, or in this ordinary, unremarkable, perfect moment, let yourself take up a little more space than usual. Breathe a little deeper, sit a little taller. Allow the warmth of your own existence to settle, unhurried, into your bones. You have always been worth celebrating. You just needed time to believe it.